Hello, my name's Denis Higgins. I'm Director of Catholic Education in the Diocese of Sandhurst in Central Victoria and have spent 13 years doing this job and previously 10 years as an educational consultant and 10 years prior to that as a principal of a school and 7 years before that as a school teacher, primary teacher. In my life's work, I've had 35 years of passionate interest in trying to get at key elements of new learnings in relation to appropriate provision for every single child who we come in contact with in schools, but also as a society, as a community, as a school community, as a classroom community, as the endeavour we all call education surrounding young people and what mechanisms, strategies, concepts, key philosophies that surround the life of young people in a society which by and large provides beautifully for many students, moderately for a whole range of students, and in reality at this stage in our civilisation's history doesn't cope well at all, doesn't provide, in fact enables and allows flotsam and jetsam of society for people to fall through the cracks. We ignore it in our communities because we separate ourselves in specialist areas of schools and social service and welfare and government and politicians and teachers. So in the separateness we make sure there's cracks for people to fall through, there's fissures in the organisational structures of places including our schools, where young people are the victims. So any discussion which prompts us to serious examination of what are non-negotiables, what are things that we've understood well and we can maintain, what are things that we should let go of and abandon. The most recent discussions in relation to, usually termed around learning for the 21st century, new learning, whatever the mantra is around that, we still have this bottom line issue of how can we cater for young people so that every single person has the opportunity to come to goodness and love of self and positive contribution to their communities and positive contributions to their families and positive contributions to their own life, their own relationships. Many of the things that I've spent a large part of my life in have concentrated around the skills of teachers, the practice of teachers, the professional development mechanisms surrounding teachers, the communal arrangements in schools where the adults are treated with dignity, with respect, well-resourced, prompted, pushed, nourished, nurtured. None of which I regret. But in recent thoughts, I had not understood that in all that effort and all that passion and all that care, which has always been genuine, that sometimes the weightings are not in balance. They're not appropriate for some issues. And in the end, the discussions, the endless discussions about teachers and teacher quality and teacher provision and professional development unerringly puts the emphasis for success or failure on the teacher, on the activities of the teacher, on the prowess of the teacher. So we end up with good research backing it up that regardless of the student, regardless of their home situation, regardless of their past life, regardless of their present life, if you can just by some happenstance, by some fluke of nature, put a gun teacher with these young students, these young people at this time, no matter how fractured their life is, that all of a sudden some miracle will happen for these young people and that life will turn around and things will be good and their literacy will improve, and especially if we tick 1,000 boxes and follow nonsense government policies on literacy and numeracy. If we do all those things, all of a sudden the flotsam and jetsam of society, the people we cast off, the young people we don't care enough about or we're not sophisticated enough to understand, that somehow they'll come to full life their life will turn around, and somehow by the magic of teacher practice, this episodic travel to life being in disarray and life being an emotional drain, that somehow that'll turn around, all on the back of a gun teacher, all on the back of the teacher's craft. I've believed most of that for most of my life, and at this stage, like most people, you cast around all your professional life, new insights and light bulbs coming on and things exploding in your mind and thinking, is that weighting right? Is that true? Is it all just about let's get the teacher training better, let's get the professional development regimes better, let's pick people out of business and communities and fast track them so that they can become expert teachers to surround these young people? I don't think it is. I think some of the emphasis we put on that is clearly correct. It's better to have a good, coping, confident person, elder, surrounding young people. It's good to have a person with good craft knowledge as compared to no craft knowledge. It's good to have a person with great content knowledge as compared to no content knowledge. Yes, that's not the issue here though. The issue for me is, and in recent explorations into self-directed learning, a bit of a misnomer. A lot of people are put off by the notion of self-directed as in they think the students to direct everything. It's not about that. It's not students self-directing what. It's about students self-directing how, self-directing the importance of what they're doing, self-directing their time, so when and why. So in this explosion in my mind, this weighting towards teacher craft and development has then suddenly been balanced up by looking at the structures we have in our places we call educational institutions. Beautiful places, places I love, but nonetheless places with structures that constrict and constrain and demoralise, not just the students, demoralise and diminish the adults in the communities. So this emphasis on that as long as the teacher's extraordinary, the learning environment can be great for the young people. That's not true. Well, it's not true to the extent that if you then have that view about it and then structure it up so that can't happen, then have the weightings on the wrong things, then that no matter how much you aspire for that, no matter how much you crave that in fact what you're doing is diminishing the chances of the learning event, of the communal event for the young people being strong. For instance, we have in secondary schools stupid practices, constrictive practices around 25 students in a class or 23 in a class, and we have the discussion about whether it should be 27 or 22 or 21. Who cares? In that, we perpetuate the notion that the teacher, the craft of the teacher taking responsibility for the learning, when in fact the student should be taking responsibility for the learning. We put students in groups of 25, therefore accentuating the fact that you need to be a maestro to cater for the learning event of each individual student. You need to be a super teacher to have your finger on the pulse of each student, and therefore we get the dropout, we get the drop off, we get the student who can't cope. So we don't change the structure, we don't change the responsibilities, we simply get rid of the flotsam and jetsam.